Left 4 Dead is by far the greatest zombie game ever created, and it's not even close. When someone tells me they don't like zombie games, not only do I blindly attack anyone in the padded room, but I always ask them the same question.
Have you ever played Left 4 Dead?
Left 4 Dead is one of the greatest video games ever made, and also happens to be a zombie game. This is a bold claim. I am well aware of that. I have only ever given the title greatest zombie game ever to Left 4 Dead. And Left 4 Dead 2, of course. And Project Zomboid. And Days Gone, and Dying Light. You may not be aware of this, but there are a fair amount of zombie games out there. Many of them, I would say, are damn near perfect. Ooh, oh, what's that? The Last of Us Part 2 is better than The Last of Us Part 1? What? Ooh, ruffle some feathers, huh? You feeling froggy? Fucking leave. I'm just trying to be different. I've never played either one. So why does Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, in my arrogant opinion, stand king shit above all of them? This question popped up into my mind when I was revisiting the game. After a very stressful day at work, and also just a stressful time to exist, period, when I got home, I booted up Left 4 Dead almost instinctively instead of any other zombie game in my library. And I knew Left 4 Dead was going to be a certified, guaranteed good time. But after playing for 3 hours straight, a question popped up into my head. Why am I having all of the fun? I wanted to ask my friends the same question, but at times I couldn't even hear them over their laughter. But I could not come up with an answer. This bothered me deeply because I'm typically fairly articulate when it comes to describing why I like games so much. This game is good. Me am like, ooh, this game piss. Me no play. But with Left 4 Dead, I was stumped. On the surface, this game isn't anything crazy. There's no fantastic spectacle and no real narrative that presents itself unless you are actively participating and paying attention to the world building around you. There are no cosmetics you can unlock and no ability to punch in them digits, which I would if I could. And this game has a very simple premise nearly the entire time you play this game. You go from point A to point B, and sometimes back to point A. But on that stressful day of work, I picked this game. Almost subconsciously. But again, the burning question of why is that? Well, I believe because Left 4 Dead, at its core, is not a zombie game. It is CSGO. I understand how fucking batshit that sounds, and many of you just winced in horror and may be on your way to burn my house down, but just humor me for a second. I'm going to take you on a trip down history lane, and not that boring-ass history like, what is the Civil War? More like, did you know Alexander the Great named one of the cities he conquered after his favorite horse? The year is 2004. Valve was on their 4th year of development with CSGO, I think. I really don't do any research on a topic I cover. But you're still here, so you obviously don't give a shit. One of the development teams that worked on CSGO, Turtle Rock Studios, started working on a game mode for CSGO that was more of a team-focused game rather than a competitive one. Instead of fighting each other, you work together to fight waves of AI enemies. This is obviously not a novel concept, but during this time period, most games that were coming out were more focused on the competitive edge that gaming could offer, and many games really only prioritized teams versus teams. A lot of them were designed around the idea of fighting your fellow gamer rather than teaming up with them. So this idea was a nice change of pace. After creating a game mode where dozens of knife-wielding CPUs charge at you, attempting to kill you, and you don't let them kill you, I promise it's cooler than it sounds, Valve saw the potential, and they greenlit a full development cycle for a brand new IP. That game is Left 4 Dead. I don't know why I try to surprise you guys on what the game would be. When this game dropped, it's no understatement to say it was a massive hit. Players seemed to share the sentiment of wanting to play with their friends and not against them, and it was definitely a cherry on top to violently kill zombies in the most creative and brutal ways possible. You'll see history repeating itself maybe a decade later, but more on that in just a second. Now, obviously the timing was perfect, and the idea was stellar, but is that truly the reason players stuck around even to this day? I don't think so. I think there were 3 critical factors that were the catalyst to this game's success. When I think of a zombie game, what stands out to me as the most critical aspect are the zombies. Who saw that coming? All of that other stuff like story can be interesting, sure, but when it comes down to a zombie game, if I'm not enjoying the dismemberment of the undead in a zombie game, we've got a problem. That's not to say there is no narrative merit to this game. In fact, the characters are some of the best characters we've ever played in a zombie game. Characters like Zoe, Bill, Ellis, Master Chief, and Coach all have really funny banter with each other, and that keeps you engaged in their personal life and their own survival. But its strength is obviously in the undead. There is no question. Left 4 Dead has done zombie killing the best out of any game I have ever played to this day. When we all first started that mission in Left 4 Dead, and we were confronted with the hordes of zombies that preceded us, there was a genuine sense of fear when they showed up. The way they blindly sprinted at us with those dead white eyes was genuinely unsettling. At the time, this was because most zombie games that had come out before Left 4 Dead really only had those slow shamblers the genre was known for. So to see these fuckers running was definitely a shock, to say the least. They all shriek this blood-curdling scream as they swarm on you with no wasted time on finding their next meal. I do believe there is an instinctive reason for me personally as to why I love this game so much, and that is because it is clear as day that the dev teams for Left 4 Dead took heavy inspiration from the greatest zombie movie ever made, 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later kind of had a similar shock to the culture of zombies. Many movies at the time really only had the slow, walking, dumb, undead zombies, whereas 28 Days Later came along and said, fuck you, watch them run. This showed us just how dangerous and terrifying zombies that sprinted were, letting you know that the zombies you have to face by the thousands are actually freak athletes was genuinely the scariest depiction of zombies in any form of media. Okay, maybe not any form of media. So for me personally, when I was playing this game, I was in zombie heaven, which ironically is just hell. Then, when you finally let loose the tyranny of bullets upon their undead flesh, the reward of seeing their limbs fly off as each bullet has its own devastating impact on their body really tickled my brain in a way I don't feel comfortable explaining. Blowing chunks off these fuckers constantly fueled my brain with dopamine, and this is critical because you are going to be fighting these things by the thousands the entire game. There is no stop. You feel the impact each melee attack and every bullet has on the zombies as their wounds linger and chunks are completely blown off, and this is a mechanic that is sorely missed in today's zombie gaming climate. I'm not going to be too negative, I promise. That will come later. Then, when you start to get a little too comfortable, maybe you feel a little bit too much like a badass, the game flips a 180 and hurls special mutant infected at you. This is the first true test of your own fear. It is a truly sobering moment when you see one of these things lurk around the corner, as you know it's not going to be nearly as easy as killing any of the other regular zombies. Witnessing a hunter, or a smoker, or a witch snaps you back into fight or flight mode, but none of them inject quite the same level of fear as the first time you encounter a big boy, a fucking tank. You all may not remember the first time you witnessed a tank stampeding its way at you, and allow me to remind you it was the scariest fucking thing I have ever seen in my entire life. The way the music shifts to this real eerie tone to let you know that shit is about to hit the fucking fan, and all four of you collectively realize that you may not be prepared for the battle ahead of you. You're not ready for this shit. You are not ready for a juiced up monster that has chosen you as its next condiment, and as all of your resources are depleted, a severe sense of hopelessness starts to take over, which adds to the euphoric feeling and reward for when you finally kill this thing. Now, normally I am not a fan of special infected, which I know might be a weird thing to say. With games like Project Zomboid, they only have one type of zombie, and I like this solely based on immersion, because when you fight these zombies, there is always that hint of stress that any one of those zombies could have been you, whereas the quote-unquote immersion is broken because I have a very hard time believing I would turn into a charger, although of all the special mutant infected, I would most likely be a charger for reasons I will not explain. Please get out of my room. But there's also a ton more to do in Project Zomboid, so you can't really compare the two, even though I just did. Look, if you're looking for consistency and competence, you're on the wrong video, because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I am not knocking Left 4 Dead for having a very simple gameplay loop. In fact, I think that's one of its greatest strengths. But little mini-bosses throughout each level really helped retain the player's attention and kept them engaged the whole time, because you could never get too comfortable, even on the lower difficulties. This wasn't just an afterthought either as a tool for retention. You could tell they poured their heart and soul into creating these monsters. Each one of them have their own distinctive quirks, sound cues, abilities, sex appeal, and cosmetics. These descriptors don't just tell the player what fuck shit to look out for, but they also tell a story of who these people were before they became these ugly fucks. They genuinely filled a player with an overwhelming sense of dread because many of their attacks are borderline unreactable. When a smoker whips out its tongue at you, not only do I get excited, whoa, but it's also unlikely that I will ever be able to anticipate this attack or even react to it. And Turtle Rock Studios knows this. They wanted you to understand right off the bat that the individual in this game cannot survive alone. Unless you're some fucking speedrunner, which, by the way, you gotta calm down, guys. This is getting insane. Left 4 Dead severely punishes the player that treks on without the rest of its team, leaving everybody behind. Because remember when I told you the devs wanted to focus on a more team-driven game? Yeah, they were not fucking around. If you start to push ahead of your teammates because you think you're king shit and you're carrying the load, you will get fucked relentlessly. And if your teammates are not there to back you up in a pinch, you will die. Look, I said it before, but even on lower difficulties, the zombies in this game are not to be fucked with. You really think the second you 1v1 a tank that can hurl boulders at you, you're not going to be seeing Tupac alive? On the flip side, if you are struggling to keep up, you are just as much a detriment to the team as the arrogant asshole that charges forth without anyone. You cannot be babysat in this game. If you don't pull your weight, you will surely be left for dead. Fuck you, I don't care. And that is critical because the team focus of this game is what I believe truly kept it alive even to this day, aside from other factors that have maybe kept it alive to this day. The zombies in this game truly feel like a virus trying to kill the last remaining white blood cells in the human body as they organize attacks and completely surround you. But that was one of the aspects. The other ones are a bit more convoluted. After I played for the 5th hour straight, a thought popped into my head. Do you guys remember Destiny 1? I promise this is relevant. The first Destiny was heavily criticized for its very repetitive gameplay loop. You would simply go to some kind of terminal, let your little ghost activate it, and you had to protect it from waves of enemies. And this got boring after the second time. But Left 4 Dead has a very similar gameplay loop and similar premise. Throughout the whole game, at the end of every big level, there is a final stand where you kill waves of enemies that come at you relentlessly. And you and your team need to organize and stay focused in order to survive and get to the next mission. But not once did any of my friends or I get bored of this. Why? I should be bored by now. This should no longer scare me. I should get a haircut. But I was still having fun and getting scared. That is because of one critical factor. The atmosphere. Oh man, the atmosphere in this game is fucking palpable. When I look at how each map is designed, it is actively building up that suspense that some fuck shit is about to happen. The idea of you are only getting a taste of what's to come lingers in your brain throughout your entire playthrough. So when the time comes that there is a final stand, not only are you incredibly excited for it, but you are genuinely scared of what this game is going to hurl its way at you. Because this game leaves little breadcrumbs to suggest that you haven't really faced adversity yet, and it's gonna remind you who the fuck it is. So when the time comes to hold the line against the living dead, you are mentally ready. So even though this happens like 20 times or so, it is just as exhilarating, if not more so, each time it happens. And look, this game may not always take itself super seriously, and with the inclusion of mods, it really doesn't take itself seriously. But for the majority of the game, it is actually really fucking creepy. Now, yes, you can bypass the fear this game is set up by turning all the zombies into Teletubbies, sure, and we will touch on the mods in this game more, I promise you. Vanilla Left 4 Dead imposes a certain level of gravity to your situation, which in turn makes you really not want to die and let your team down. But again, while this game does lean towards the creepy factor, all it takes is a little trip down to Modville, and before you know it, oh my god, I am so incredibly fucking scared. This is far worse. I thought this would be funny, but this is horrifying as shit. Now, yes, obviously the vast selection of mods has helped this game's longevity. There is no doubt about that in my mind. But for me personally, I actually kind of prefer a more low-key set of mods, like maybe a couple texture packs, or maybe even something to make the game a little bit creepier, because I know that's what the devs intended for the original tone of this game, and I kind of like the vibe they offer more than the modders. I'm sorry to any modders out there, you guys are truly talented, but I like the classics, man. I think the devs did a fantastic job with the art design here, and unless I'm shit-faced hammered, I won't really be putting that many mods on the game. Not to say I don't. Obviously, I will, because even I get a little bit bored. And yes, I would like my tank to be Shrek. A game on its own can be borderline perfect, and it can master its own gameplay loop, but eventually there's going to be a time where you're going to get bored, you want to move on. And that is where mods came in to rejuvenate life back into this franchise. Because after you've experienced the game the way it's meant to be experienced, you can sort of just go fucking apeshit and build your own sandbox and have all the fun you possibly could. So if the creepy atmosphere just ain't hitting the way it's hitting me, go ahead, turn the zombies into Teletubbies. I don't give a shit, I'm not your dad. Unless. On the topic of atmosphere, let's talk narrative. a little bit. The game is excellent at only giving you the minimum amount of knowledge you need in order to kind of understand what's going on. The game doesn't really have a story. That's because the game devs clearly wanted to focus on the actual gameplay and not have you distracted on anything other than I need to get the fuck out of here. But you can always find little nuggets of storytelling, whether it's some scene where a couple survivors had a last stand, or survivors that have come before you in each safe room that write all over the walls, indicates a substantial level of world building that I think is not praised enough. There is art in subtlety, and I often say less is more. Maybe this game has a little bit too much less, and I would like to see more cinematic cutscenes, because aside from the opening cinematic of both games, there are no more throughout the whole game. And I think that might have been a little bit of a missed opportunity, because this shit was awesome. Because of the history you start to pick up on, it adds a real weight to what you're trying to achieve, because in the back of your mind, you kind of have an idea that most survivors that are attempting the same route you are attempting didn't survive. All of the narrative is placed through little facets of environmental storytelling. And this is because if you don't give a shit about the story, it is not going to distract you from your enjoyment of the game. If you don't care how the green flu started and took over the world, that's okay. It will not hinder your experience. Hey, oh, you guys might be wondering what the green flu is. Let me give you a full deep dive. I'm just kidding. I don't really know. I know the green flu is the virus that has turned everyone into zombies, and I think it started from a cheeseburger. Even aside from storytelling, the way each map is built can really make you feel claustrophobic and sometimes hard to breathe at times, because even things like rain can feel quite heavy. Okay, I am sorry about that one. You might be having an absolute blast, but deep down your monkey brain knows that something is off. Something is not right now. And the way they made these maps never lets you feel comfortable even once. Even in safe rooms where you are literally invulnerable from attack, you still kind of feel like at any moment the zombies are going to break down the door. This game forces the player to remain in a state of hypervigilance nearly 90% of the time. All of these factors led to the strongest feelings of euphoria I have ever felt when completing a mission. What adds to the impressiveness of this feeling is that there are no rewards you get. There are no cosmetics you unlock for beating a game on, like, maximum difficulty or whatever, that I'm aware of. The game executed what it set out to do so flawlessly that the sole reward of surviving was enough for me to keep going on. Because the feeling of winning is better than buying a Halo rec pack. What a foreign concept. In today's modern landscape, if I don't get a brand new shiny toy at the end of a match, I'm gonna start throwing a tantrum. But Left 4 Dead seemed to be the exception. Was this nostalgia? No, I don't think so. I think this is just a great example of what mastering a gameplay loop can do to the player. Because Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 absolutely rocked dick without this weird loot box gimmick. Whether they admit it or not, Left 4 Dead truly impacted and influenced modern day games and how they present themselves. I truly believe Left 4 Dead walked so Helldivers could run. While Left 4 Dead did not invent the horde genre, there is no doubt in my mind that many AAA devs want to execute the same perfect gameplay and dopamine feedback loop that Left 4 Dead nailed. Let's take it back to Helldivers, because it's my channel and I don't give a shit. You're gonna sit there and watch it. Helldivers actively avoided implementing a PvP mode. And no, I do not disagree that a PvP game mode in Helldivers would be pretty fun. It just goes to show how committed the dev team is to staying focused on the train that is team-based combat. They want to maintain that cooperative vibe that Left 4 Dead had. There's no doubt about it. Especially also when you shoot enemies and chunks of their flesh and body blow off. There's no doubt that it feels very reminiscent and nostalgic to Left 4 Dead. I believe Helldivers succeeded so well because they know, deep down, you want to play with your friends, not against them. In a world where we live to see who is the best at a game, we often forget how damn fun it is to win together. This is some PBS Kids bullshit. Left 4 Dead brought me and my friends together and led us to having all of the fun and the greatest time ever. You compare that to when we play a game like Valorant, where we all shit-talk each other and blame one another for mistakes we've definitely made on our own, and we get tilted, and we know deep down we're the reason we're losing, but we can't admit it. Sorry, Taylor.